So I want to start off by saying I've watched most of your movies throughout my entire life. I really love your work. And I was so excited about The Bubble. And then getting to actually see it, I laughed out loud multiple times. And
Oh,
normally I'd
good.
like chuckle, but it was genuinely funny. And I know why you were inspired to write it, but I wanted to know what kind of drew you into the making of Jurassic World Dominion and what was so fascinating about that.
Part of it was just that I was trying to think of a really safe movie to shoot. So I thought, oh, a lot of actors stuck in a hotel having a nervous breakdown. That's almost like a Christopher Guest movie
Yeah.
that's contained. Like if you see Best in Show or something,
Yeah.
it's very contained. And then my first thought was, oh, and then whenever you see the dinosaur movie, they're on a green screen stage. And maybe you never even see the dinosaurs, or maybe they look like pencil drawings and it can be cheap. And then slowly I thought, oh, what if it looked exactly like a dinosaur movie? And it got a little bit more complicated. And then I heard about a lot of shows where they were dealing with problems with people stuck in the bubble, losing their minds, trying to escape. It wasn't really based on the behavior of one show, but I think everyone was having a common experience of going stir crazy. A lot of people are separated from their families for months at a time. Whenever anything happens, they have to go back into a second 2-week quarantine. I heard about that happening a bunch of times where people do the quarantine, then they're exposed to someone, and then they got to do another 2-week quarantine. So all of that seemed like good fodder, which most people relate to because we all were stuck in the house. We all had to think about whatever pops in our minds when we have too much brain space.
Yeah. And I think this movie is very interesting to me because it's a bunch of actors that I love. So I was just fascinated throughout the entire movie because I'm a Doctor Who fan. So I love Karen Gillan. I love Pedro Pascal. And I'm just watching like, oh, this is great. This is all the people I want to watch in a movie trapped in a hotel for an extended period of time. But what I really liked was how every character has their own unique problem that we get little snippets of. But I think you do a really good job of giving us enough information to kind of inform it. And so I wanted
Yes.
to know how much of it do you let the actors kind of play with on set, or how much of it is built into the script that you helped go write?
I sit with Pam Brady, my co-writer, who co-wrote the South Park movie, who's legendarily funny. And we do try to think of a backstory, both for the Cliff Beast characters who are in these movies and then the people who play them and what their relationships are to each other. We had to sit and go, well, who likes each other? Who hates each other? What happened on the other shoots that led to how they're behaving now? So we had this idea that Karen Gillan's character left because she thought she was too good for the franchise and made a really bad movie where she plays someone who's half Israeli and half Palestinian, who tries to bring both sides together to fight the aliens. And it went so badly that she has to run back to the Cliff Beast franchise, and now everyone's kind of mad at her for thinking she's better than them. So we went through that process with every character. And then there's a lot of rehearsals and conversations with all the actors to flesh all of that out. And everyone is a writer in the cast. Everyone is really funny. And so they all made massive contributions to the script and what you see on screen.
Yeah, and there's one that I do want to talk about specifically. So, like spoilers, I guess. But in the scene where they all get high and they think Dieter is dead, that is the one of the funniest things I've seen in recent movies, especially when the guy goes, "What time is it? 3:23? Okay, he's dead." And they're like, he's moving. And he's like, it's his soul leaving his body. And it was just the chaos of that feels so scripted and perfect, but also kind of just like a chaos of an improv scene. Because
Mhm.
I studied both. So it's like
Yeah.
I see what's going on. And with stuff like that, how do you as a director kind of approach these more chaotic moments? Because you have so many of them in your movies and they're always very perfect when you're watching them on screen.
I a lot of that is trying to figure out where everyone is physically and what
Yeah.
the shots are and how do I cover this so I can get the script, then get some extra stuff, and then also fully unleash them to play with each other and have the right cameras on the right people. So if something magical happens, I don't get to editing and go, there was no camera on Harry when he said that funny line. And then the editing trick is, can you make it feel organic and natural? Because maybe a scene is constructed from a bunch of different takes, and to match the energies and the performances, and that takes us half a year of editing to figure out how to do that. And that was something that made us laugh so hard. I don't remember how it came up, this idea that, you know, Dieter passes out from being on too many drugs, and Harry's character just says calling time of death, and they'll debate if he's dead or not.
Yeah, and then that's like the tub of ice. It was just like everything in that sequence of events was just funnier and funnier. And I was just saying, like, this is insane, but I love it.
Well, those are the scariest scenes to shoot, because you do know that it's supposed to be a tear down the house scene. So as you're shooting it, you're frightened that it won't be funny, because it's clear, okay, this is the set piece. This is the thing that's supposed to be the funniest thing in the movie. Oh man, I hope we're not totally wrong and it's completely unfunny. So you wind up shooting a lot of footage. I always shoot so much stuff to protect against bombing.
Well, I have a question that is very specific to me, so sorry. But you have these moments in your movies that I do feel like were genuinely crafted with like me or my friends in mind, mainly because I'm thinking of This Is 40 when I believe it's Maud is crying over Lost. And I was like, oh, I did that. And then in this movie, it's Maria's entire character. I'm like, great, that's me. I'm her. And so when you're making these movies and you have these moments, is that, obviously I know it's not something you're thinking about, like people are going to relate to this, but is it something you kind of do in your work? Because you do have these more kind of relatable comedies that people like to go back to over and over again.
I think that the more specific it is, somehow the more universal it gets. So the more truthful and deep the work is, if the characters are very specific and three-dimensional, then people will say, oh, I do exactly that. I think that doesn't happen when characters aren't thought through and you don't put in the time to flesh people out. That's why we try to do it with even the smallest characters. You know, people with the least to do in the movie, the challenge is, can I do that same work for them and try to make their moments, even if they're briefer, as funny as anything in the movie.
Yeah, and switching gears for a minute, you have a book coming out. And so I wanted to know, what is the biggest challenge between the two? Because being a writer in one medium is one thing, but being one in a completely different one is its own challenge. So what was that experience like?
Well, I've always loved to interview comedians. I did it in high school for my high school radio station, mainly as a way to meet comedy people and ask them how they do it. And the first book was mainly interviews I did in the 80s when I was in high school. And then I filled it out with some new ones of people like Chris Rock and Sarah Silverman. And for the new one, I did most of them during lockdown, because I realized that everyone was available and they were also in a very open, vulnerable place. And it led to very, very intense conversations about comedy and their lives. People were very reflective. So we talked to people like Sacha Baron Cohen, Nathan Fielder, Samantha Bee, Amber Ruffin. This was before and after George Floyd and all the protests. So we talked to a lot of diverse voices about how they felt about what was happening in the country personally, and also how it related to their work and how they want to express themselves in the culture right now.
Yeah, and I'm very excited to get into it. But as a final question, I always kind of like to ask this, and especially with a movie like The Bubble, which is making fun of people who said everyone needs these movies to kind of make us feel better, but it is the only movie about the pandemic I think a lot of people are excited about. And so I want to know, what do you hope audiences get to take away when they get to see it?
I really made it because I thought, I don't really have anything to give the world except hopefully a funny movie, a distraction, a way to commiserate about how difficult this has been for all of us. I didn't want it to be something that you would watch and think, I don't want to live through that again. I wanted it to be the thing that made you laugh about how we've felt the last few years, the struggles we've had, how it's broken us at times. And so you would be able to feel like other people understand how hard this was to deal with, and hopefully in a hilarious way. And that's really all I wanted, to make people laugh really hard about this. This is the, the broadest movie I've made. I'm usually obsessed with trying to be funny, even though people are completely real. That's what The King of Staten Island was. But I got rid of that rule for this movie, and it's closer to a Mel Brooks movie or Tropic
really
Thunder or something like that. And that was what I was going for, something that was, as a friend said, more bonkers. And I hope people enjoy that. I tried to make the movie I wish was on Netflix. When I'm home and I'm looking for something, I wanted to make the thing I wish was there.
And I think you did. I'm so excited for everyone to get to see it. I want to talk to everyone about it, and I want all the little GIFs and pictures online. But thank you so much for talking to me.
Thanks, Rachel. Take care. Be well.